Good evening and welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodi. Welcome to another edition of the program where we look at issues from very deep perspective and give you very balanced analysis of the talking point on today's edition. We'll be looking at very key issues making the rounds. We'll be looking at deeply what is happening in the country and across the globe. But our focus today will be on nation building and good governance, the role of political parties to achieve that as opposition. We'll be looking at that. We'll also be looking at the multi-party democracy in contrast to a single party state. And we'll also be putting our searchlights on Rivers State, where the court, Federal High Court in Abuja, has given an order stopping the Central Bank of Nigeria from releasing the allocation of Rivers State, saying what the governor, Sim Fubara, had done since January is an aberration and a somersault to the provisions in Abuja had said. The court held that the receipt and disbursement of monthly allocation since January this year to Sim Fubara is an aberration, and Justice Joyce Abdul Malik, who issued the order on Wednesday, held that the presentation of the 2024 budget to 4 members of the House of Assembly was an affront on the Constitution. So the big question is other issues plaguing Rivers State, the continuous interference by the FCT minister. Is that allowed? Is that okay for the nation's democracy? That's a big question yet to answer. The judge, therefore, restrained the CBN, the Accountant General of the Federation, the banks involved from allowing Sim Fubara, the governor of Rivers State, from accessing money from the consolidated revenue and federation accounts. Those are some of the big issues we're looking at on today's edition. And so we'll be talking about these issues in very close perspective and looking at issues in terms of our talking point today, which has to do with achieving good governance as in terms of nation building and good governance, the role of political parties as opposition. My guest on today's edition is no other person but Benjamin Alika, Bank of Nigeria, and other banks from releasing the monthly allocation to Rivers State, saying the receipt and disbursement of allocations since January has been an affront to the Constitution by Sim Fubara, the governor of Rivers State, because he presented the 2024 budget to a 4-member Rivers State Assembly. Do you think this is all about still power play? If this has happened from January, how come suddenly in November, October ending, just barely 2 days or 48 or 24 hours to November, the court is coming up with this? Do you think it's more of the power play and how does this align with our discourse for today, which has to do with nation building and good governance, the role of political parties?
Well, to answer the question, let's even take it one at a time, because you made mention of a number of things in terms of why giving the judgment now. Now, is the decision, who is behind the case in the first instance, who initiated that proceedings in the Federal High Court? What is the motive, right? Is it related to the power tussle between the FCT minister and the serving governor? Now, well, we are all being witnesses to the crisis, the sad and tragic crisis, political crisis that is bedeviling Rivers State, especially since this young man took over from Wike. Now, let's take the case itself, all right? Let's leave the extraneous issues, that we can deal with that. The first thing is to ask, okay, in its merit, right? Yeah, in its merit, was it justifiable by the the Lordship to have issued that order, because the implication of that is that you're going to starve the state of funds. So how does the governor run the state?
Yeah.
How does it carry out everyday recurrent expenditure that has already been, earmarked? Okay, Christmas is coming. People have to get their salaries. Government has to continue. So, because sometimes this is a political issue, really, right? Even though there's, purely, apparently she has based her decision on constitutional provisions in doing that. Well, it's a very difficult situation. Now, the judge cannot be faulted in giving that decision in the sense that, on its merit, okay? Now, the question of the timing, all right, is also not the issue, because it's possibly the time the proceedings were filed before her, But what we see that is playing out here, it is not because somebody is interested in ensuring good governance in Rivers State. This is simply a case that is motivated by the power torso, and we know where that is coming from, and it's very clear, because it's not a question of speculation anymore, because this has been going on since Wike left Rivers State and this young man took over. So now the question we ask is, really, is this consistent with the demands of democracy and good governance and development and progress of that state, right? Beyond the decision of the court, right? Beyond the technicalities, right? The question is, where are we going? Now, one expects that somebody who has been an ex-governor for 8 years should have gotten to a point where, and right now, he has a portfolio. He has a lot of responsibilities as an FCT minister. So why this so much emphasis and focus on what is happening in Rivers State? Now, again, it's a rhetoric question, because we understand why. It's about state capture. That's what this whole thing is about. All right? So how this will play out, we don't know. But what is clear is that we are seeing the overrunning of usurpation of the political party structures, government institutions, by individuals. Okay? And so by the time we start talking about the issues of nation building and good governance and role of political parties as opposition, I think we'll look at it again further from there.
All right, in case you're just joining us, you're watching The Desk, and we're looking at issues making the rounds. We'll go for a very quick break. When we return from this break, the conversation continues. Please stay with us.
Go ahead.
All right, welcome back from the break. You're still watching The Desk on Global Television, and we're looking at issues making the rounds in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. We're looking at the fact that Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik has put a restriction ordering the Central Bank of Nigeria to withhold the monthly allocation of Rivers State, pending when other issues are sorted out. The crux of the matter being the fact that Governor Sim Fubara presented the 2024 budget to just 4 members of the House of Assembly, rather than the quota that is mandated by the Constitution. I still have my guest in the studio, Benjamin Alika, who is the CEO of Leadership Commission and Academy, who is also by training also a legal mind. Let's look at now, talking about the 4 members being the fact that it was just 4 members he presented the budget to. And looking at the crisis at that time and the necessity for him to have presented budget, do you think the court should have also looked at the circumstances surrounding what made the governor present that budget? The fact that 27 lawmakers, according to the Constitution, which the court is upholding, also says when people defer to other parties from the parties that brought them into power, automatically they lose their seats. How come the court has not thought about or considering that in making its judgments or even stating the obvious?
Well, this is a quagmire, really, in the sense that it is absolutely necessary that at all times the Constitution must be upheld. And I think that is what whoever initiated these proceedings, took advantage of.
Okay.
4 members being present to receive a state budget is definitely a far cry from what the Constitution prescribes to third majority that should be present, right? And on what basis would they actually engage those proceedings, right? And therefore approve the budget. So in itself, it's already a nullity in terms of appropriation.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
So it's on that basis, I believe, the Justice Joyce, took her decision. And it's very straightforward, okay, for anybody who wanted to do that. Okay, yes. Looking at circumstantial considerations in what's called judicial decisions is a very difficult thing to do with. Yeah, because the question the judge will be answering herself or himself is, will this decision stand on appeal? Because every appeal that upturn decisions of the lower court is a minus for every judge, so to say.
Okay.
Yeah. And however, I think the court could also have gone beyond that. All right. Yeah. Truly, to even if she has to vary the claims, right? Okay. Now she had latitude to look at the issues holistically. All right. And to say, okay, you know what? I can suspend proceedings on this case and then proceed to call the parties. Now, what we need right now is a political resolution of the challenges in Rivers State. And more importantly, the president should have been in a position, I believe, to call the minister to order or even call the parties together and then resolve this case, or this, whatever it is that we are seeing in Rivers State. Because ultimately, the damage that is being done and that has been done already is incalculable in terms of nation building, because it's not just affecting the state alone, it is also a signpost for other states that anything could happen, anything can go. Anything goes. So what we're seeing is political impunity, right, as a result of somebody who has, and I think what the FCT minister is doing is simply because, taking advantage of his position at the federal level. And that shouldn't be so, because I don't see how this will boost his political honor, all right, or profile. I don't see how. He's doing well within the context of the FCT. Yeah, look at the roads. This man has done well within that context. Everybody can see it. This is a question of contentment. It's an issue of lack of contentment, lack of honor as far as I'm concerned, and a lack of care and compassion for his people. You can't be a leader and be destroyed. Leaders don't destroy. Leaders build. Leaders inspire followership. Leaders, reconcile. Right? We saw that in the life of Mandela. You can't compare what is happening now and what happened in South Africa. South Africa was at the brink of self-destruction. Despite 27 years of being detained and being imprisoned,
he forgave.
He reconciled, he brought the nation together because he understood that the freedom he's fighting cannot be achieved, won, and sustained except on the basis of forgiveness, reconciliation, and unity.
Does this further portray the kind of now we're looking at talking nation building away from rivers now.
Okay.
Let's delve into nation building now.
Yeah.
Does this portray the kind of leaders we have, which the political parties throw up as aspirant or candidates for various positions of leadership in the country, and which probably is more focused on how deep their pocket is rather than their character and their true sincerity to want to lead the nation towards a better country or people?
Well, there are many ways to look at this, right? And at many different layers, truly, especially to do with nation building and to do with leadership, emergence of leaders. You know, the truth about it is that it boils down to this same one problem of what truly defines us as a nation. You understand this? Now, it has been proved, and we have seen it over and over, especially in developed nations, right, that nation building is not an ad hoc thing. Rather, it is holistic, is evolutionary, and is organic. And this is so when that nation, ab initio, from the beginning, has a clear direction. Most nations are born. Nations are fathered. Nations are nurtured based on fundamental aspirations, right? Defined objectives, definite principles, values, philosophies, vision. And that is what actually births nations from the place of, or what gives nations their fundamental meaning, identity, and ultimately their sovereignty. And that is what defines leadership emergence. Because a nation that has purpose, mission, objectives, and all of that, and has evolved value-wise, principle-wise, will naturally give birth to purposeful leaders, purposeful citizens, meaningful leaders, visionary leaders, principled leaders. It typically happens. All right. So, but see, Nigeria has evolved over the years on the basis of survival of the fittest, instinct, so to say. We are surviving at the expense of each other, right? Because a nation that is not born naturally will give birth to orphans. And orphans are subversive. And this is self-sabotage. That's what we're saying here, right? A citizen can't do this. A leader can't do this. Because your primary concern and interest is the national interest. But what you are seeing here is personal interest, even in the most bizarre way, being showcased and demonstrated before us. That also shows us that we do not have consequences for actions. It also is showing us that leaders have not made themselves to be above the law. Okay? So what we need to do is that, or what it boils down to, ultimately, is that question. What is the Nigerian nation in terms of our vision, our purpose, our goals? Now, that's on one side. Then the other side is, in choosing leaders, right? What is the basis of our choice of leadership? But even that is also a far cry as a question. You see, because the issue here now is that there's something curious that is going on. We are seeing the emergence, right? Not just of pro-quality leaders, right? Whose quest is power and money, right? But we're seeing a situation where there is a brand of politics that is purely on the basis of conquest, survival, intimidation, brute force. And we saw that sometime when we read history about state of nature, prehistoric times. And that is what is playing out, so to say. And it's not just Nigeria, but Nigerian case is so peculiar. I mean, from 2000 and, let's even say from 2000 and, from even 1999, 2003, you can begin to see the track. We can begin to track this whole, picture. Because I remember the days of Obasanjo, we saw the concept of politics of do or die, right? Now, that has matured in the real sense of it, especially with the advent of the present political dispensation.
Could it be an offshoot of the military era? Because most times they say it's the aftermath of the military era. Is that completely true, or it's just a soft or easy way to pass the buck?
Well, I don't want to say it's military, because if you look at the president we have today, he was part of NADECO, who fought the military and for the return of democracy. From 1999 to 2003, then 2007, he was governor of Lagos State, right? And he stood in opposition to PDP government at that time. And he had tended to maintain a democratic posture, okay, as a progressive. So now what's happening today? Is he the same person as what we know as at that time? The answer is there for everybody to answer. The question is there for everybody to answer. Now, but the issue here is this. I still believe that two scenarios. The first scenario is the whole concept of our evolution as a nation and people, right? And if you look at our leadership history, really, maybe one or two here and there, right? You can't really say we've been very fortunate with having the best of our citizens leading this country, right? Okay, now, because if you want to talk about leadership, now you're talking about the best of the best. And that's what you see in China. That is what we have seen in Singapore, and even in most parts of Europe. So the best lead, and that's what leadership is about. So by the time you see a system, which also now takes us back to what's it called? Party politics.
Well, yes, party
so
politics.
You now see that we now have a problem. Now the problem is this. What is the constitution of these political parties that is bringing forth our leaders today?
And do they have internal democracy?
Is there internal democracy? Are they cohesive? Is it based on merit? Is it based on credibility? It's not true. It is about money, and it's about who has the greatest capacity, right, to influence the process. And we saw that in all of the primaries that took place, both in APC and PDP, especially.
Labour Party.
Yeah, no, Labour Party, I think maybe it's a bit of different. It's a bit different, in terms of the emergence of the process, the primaries. So the question here is, if we don't have political parties, first, that are grounded ideologically.
That's another question. Do you think the political parties have ideology? The three parties. Can you completely?
That is question for them to answer, because nobody, because any party with clear ideological meaning, objective, purpose, their behavior, their conduct, right, will naturally reflect, yes, those beliefs, right? Now, secondly, because you attract your kind. When you have a party that is ideologically driven, typically you can't be a party with ideology and not be focused on excellence, merit, right, and definition of expression of your identity as a political party. That's what it is, And then especially in multi-party democratic system, where you know that it is about competitiveness, right? Diversities, representations, popular governance. Now, so it is in your best interest that you are ideologically defined, you are mission-driven, right? And in that wise, the best of your best is the best of the best is what you should attract, and also give space, to lead. So, but when you have a situation where these parties are not primarily ideologically defined or driven or motivated, so naturally it will throw up all kinds of people. All right. And then secondly, the focus would not necessarily be nation building, good governance, right? Instead, it will be individual or group interest. And then beyond that also, you see that there is a tendency to be more high-handed, more towards state conquest, state plunder, and then reactionary leadership. So, and that is what we are seeing evolving daily. Okay, now so we're seeing also the consequences. Yes, military contributed, no doubt about that. All right, the militarization of the society. Okay, but it is not enough as far as I'm concerned. If you ask me, it is more from the issue of our nation. Because, for instance, we're talking about party opposition, right? Okay, rules of political parties
as an opposition.
Now, you see, when I was thinking about this subject, My mind just went to the Constitution straight away. Now, if you look at chapter, the preamble of Nigeria's Constitution, first, it defines for us the purpose of the Constitution, which is to promote good governance. That's the first thing. Now, if you go further to chapter 2, it tells you that the specific, I think that's chapter 2, section 14, the role of government centrally is for the advancement of the security and the welfare of the people, of the citizens, right? And to whom sovereignty belongs to. So, if you're thinking governance, good governance, all you need to do is to go there, right? So, and that is the basis by which the oath of office was taken, to uphold and to defend the provisions of the Constitution. So if we're talking about good governance, it's not about what the president or what the governor or what one individual, prerogative is about, or whims and caprices and all of that. No, it is that there are fundamental objectives. For instance, in our chapter 2, directive principles of state policies, that defines the parameters, the basis by which governance must exercise the authority and the power of the state to deliver, development for the people.
Okay, with all this, can we also put some shade of, okay.
So now, if you are not talking about party opposition, okay, or a role of political parties as opposition, you now realize that the political parties themselves do not need to look far. Do you understand that? Because one of the ways you can impeach a president is that he's flouting the provisions of the Constitution. You get it? Those are the major grounds by which such suggestion could ever be made. And so, if you're going to be a watchdog as an opposition party, right? Now, all you need to do is to keep looking at the Constitution, keep looking at the actions of the incumbent or the ruling party to see if continually there is a relationship, okay, or there's, look at the judgment that was given in regards to the Rivers State. It was the Constitution that was the basis of that decision, okay. So the truth about it is that the opposition parties themselves today, which is another question altogether, are they in a position to play that role? Because for a political party to achieve, to emerge strong enough to constitute itself as an opposition to a ruling party, first, it must themselves have demonstrated a high level of character, right, and competencies, and they must have an ideological background by which they also they have their lenses. Okay. Now, for instance, in 1979 to 83, we had 5 parties. Okay. So we had the MPN, we had UPN, we had PRP, we had GNPP. Okay, and we had NPP also. Now, if you look at, MPN won the election, I think with 7 states, UPN 5 states, and then I think NPP won 3 states, and so on. You notice something. If you look at UPN, you had Awolowo, you had Ige, you had Onabanjo, BC Onabanjo, you had Ajasin, okay, you had Ambrose Ali, okay? These were formidable guys. And first and foremost, they had 5 states. They won states, they had presence. So they had 5 states to their credit, and then we had only 19 states.
So it meant 14 states.
And each of those states, those governors demonstrated a whole lot of, good governance. In 1983 election, NPN tried rigging the election, as was saying, to rig out Ajasin and brought one Omoborewo. The people of the state, Ondo State, said that is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it didn't. It didn't. That result was reversed. And Ajasin was brought back. Then we're still more civil, more defined, more cultured people than we have now.
So can we? Okay.
Yeah. Now, secondly, you must have a political party themselves that are above board, that are coherent, like we talked about internal democracy, right?
Democracy, yeah.
You understand that? And then more fundamentally, with enlightened leaders themselves. Because you have to be enlightened for you to be able to play that role. You must be principled. Now, in a situation where you have political parties with members crisscrossing, cross-carpeting, today you don't know when this person has gone to APC, you don't know when this one has gone to PDP, and all of that.
I know we're even...
So there's no way you can expect any principled, opposition to a ruling party, and then given the weight of force with which these parties are now operating, in our season. That's a whole lot.
Yeah, let's look at the issue of the citizenry now, and the electorate.
Sure.
Like you rightly said, although people refused when Ajasin was being technically wanted to be replaced.
Yeah.
Do you think Nigerian electorate, because the issue of vote buying and vote selling, they've sold their rights and probably their conscience, so they do not have that moral standing to want to interrogate their leaders or stand their feet as regards when political parties or their candidates try to shortchange them?
When we started, I said something that when you lay a foundation, all right, of mission, purpose, philosophy, values for a nation, typically it must produce sound citizens, principled citizens. It is given. When you do not do that, you leave a lot of gaps. We are still suffering from the carryover of the colonial era, where citizens were not citizens, were conquered people. And that's what it was, from slavery to colonialism and all of that. Now, what we are seeing here over the years is internal colonization and conquest of the citizens. Now, what that does is that you continue to have citizens who have no vital connection to the soul of their nation. You have not given them something to fight for, to live for, and if possible, die for as citizens.
So patriotism,
that is the foundation. Yeah. So when you ask a Nigerian, who is a Nigerian, ask him and hear him out. I was in Ghana a few years ago. I took several cabs. I made sure that I asked each and every one of them, where are you from? With so much joy and pride. Yes, I'm a Ghanaian. It didn't stop there. We're traveling from, in one of my journeys, I traveled from Accra to Cape Coast, 2.5 hours to 3 hours journey. This driver was moving at a steady speed of 65 kilometers per hour. The most he did was 70, and it comes back again. And I had my children and family. I'm like, okay, oh boy, is there a problem with your car? And he said, why? I said, why are you moving so slowly? When he shouted at me, he said, that is the speed limit. I said, I'm sorry. There was no police officer, there was nothing. You know why? Because he has been constituted as a citizen. Now, a nation must first exist in the heart of the citizens before it manifests as a geopolitical entity in the natural. Because it's a citizen that makes the nation, not the nation that truly makes a citizen. No, it is just a citizen. So, and it's not the roads and the houses. And that's my problem with the leaders we have had over the years. Because this vacuum had been there, yawning. Where are the citizens? So until you create citizens, you don't have a nation. Now, a citizen is the one that is ready to die for his country. And that's the one that will stand. Look at what happened in Kenya with those young guys. Until many of them died, but they insisted. But again, to be fair to the leadership, they backtracked. And they said, no. Initially, Ruto was about to take that hard stance, but overnight, the guy changed his posture completely and then stopped the bill. And that was it. And from that day, they had begun to respond. That is leadership. Because you must lead, you can't be leading and put along following you. And you can't, and let it be clear to Nigerian leaders today, as we speak, that you cannot build a successful nation based on intimidation. You can't. Because intimidation destroys the soul of a nation and the heart of the citizens. It just creates detachment and then disorientation and then frustration. And you can't build a nation of followers, you can't build a nation with followers who are disoriented, all right, who are frustrated, who are indifferent and who have no willingness, who are not following you. So that is the challenge. So everything we're doing in terms of, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. There's no way, it's not the president or governor that builds a nation. No, it's not National Assembly that builds a nation. It's the citizens. And when citizens are inspired with clear vision and love, then you see them rise. And let's make this point also. It's not foreigners that build your nation.
So the issue of bringing in
foreign investors
and all that.
in a society that is completely in a mess, insecurity, and all of that, all they are going to do is they come, it's speculative equity. So they bring in their fund in areas of quick maximum profit. They just invest and then take their money away. And tomorrow the economy can collapse. So you can't build based on that. And even the constitution is there. What's it called? Chapter 2, section 16. It says that this, he said, and the state shall direct its principles to ensure to harness the resources of the nation and promote prosperity and reliant and dynamic, dynamic and self-reliant economy, right? Now, so the first thing is that you harness the national resources. We have 200 million citizens. We have all mineral resources you can think of. We can have, what do you not have here?
Okay, let's look at the present government. You talked about intimidation. The present government, have they done any better? And especially when you tell the citizenry to hold on, be patient, things will get better. And just a week ago, the prices of the PMS was increased.
Again.
A few days ago, another addition. Does that go to say the government itself is also disconnected from the people, the reality of what people are going through, and the insincerity of their policies? We heard NNPCL has been pulled out, but they're still calling the shots.
Well, that is a whole different question, different trajectory to this conversation, actually, to take us the whole day. I mean, now, the issue here is not even so much about removing petrol subsidies. Petrol subsidies removal is not an isolated case, right? Now, this has to do with the overall policy bent, ideological bent of this government. What we are doing is wholeheartedly embracing the whole concept of global capitalism, which is free market enterprise economy. Right now, being dictated, midwifed by external forces.
Like the IMF and the World Bank.
The World Bank. And just even beyond, those ones are, these are food soldiers who are pushing the agenda. They are globalists. They are forces who are behind market economy. So the issue here is how long will the nation survive this kind of economic violence? How long can the people still endure? It's not a difficult economics calculation. I mean, okay, well, I don't know for today. Some 8 years ago, there was a statistic that came out showing that less than or barely 0.1% Nigerian population or family earn as much as 100,000 naira a month, right? 0.1% earn as much as 100,000 naira. Okay, now taking petrol alone, buying petrol alone to fill your tank for just 1 week, right?
Okay.
Will cost you, depending on the car, the average car will cost you 60 to 70,000, 80,000, right? Okay. So now, how do you add that up? The consequences are so numerous. You know why? Because first, you're running market economy that is built on market forces, right? In other words, it's built on demand and supply. Now, where you have over 75% to 80% of your citizens who have no earning capacity and so no effective market demand. So how does the economy now grow? Because if you go to most shops, you don't see patronage. Go to most restaurants today, it's almost empty. Okay, so now, quietly, you are seeing that business is collapsing. The next thing is that as long as you don't have enough income, your income is devalued because of inflation and all of that. What happens usually is that you have no capacity to save, and so you can't invest. So the economy cannot grow. So the economy is a holistic and integrated activities, that you just don't take one decision, in exclusion of the other. So it's before any policy decision is taken, it's supposed to have been thought through and look at the whole picture, right? And then now look at how, even in countries that have adopted free market enterprise, there's something called spacing. In other words, gradual and progressive implementation. So whereby, okay, if last year when this administration came in and they said, okay, we want to remove petrol subsidy. Now it's okay. Petrol was how much then? I can't remember. As at May last year, I think it was about
600.
Was it up to 600? Okay. Now, all right. The next 6 months, 1 year, we increased by 30%. Okay, another 3 years, we increased by all of that, and then gradually, even the people you are deferring to their interests could understand, because if a nation collapses, then there's no future. So, economy for who? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. All right. How? I mean, for our own peculiar environment, where, for instance, you have 75% Nigerian graduates that are unemployable. 80% of Nigerians have no capacity to create wealth. We don't have social support system anymore since we adopted the free market economy, because family support system is destroyed. Because everybody is trying to survive on their own. It's everyone to himself. So, for instance, especially this next generation. So, what is the support system? Now, government says they're coming up with, for instance, student loan.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
yes.
Yes, it's fine, it's good, nothing wrong with that. How much is budgeted? How many people will benefit from that? What are the processes? Okay, how viable is that in terms of our people being able to access that loan, given the corruption? Yes, accessibility and the rest of them. How many people have benefited so far? And then what's the population of our students right now in need of money? 18 million Nigerian children are out of school. So would that solve that problem? Are there no other options, creative options, innovative options, to ensure that we can drive this economy in a way that we are forward-looking, yet we do not hurt our people to the extent that they are not completely destroyed? So it is a painful pill to take, because there are other ways, there are better ways to pursue economic recovery, economic growth, economic development, and economic actualization for a nation.
Okay, let's wrap our conversation up in terms of what will be the solutions for this nation building, achieving good governance, and the role of these political parties, even as opposition.
I always tell people that first, let's even say one thing. Political parties as opposition, is actually an innovation, right? Party politics, multi-party democracy, were all part of the evolution of, societies politically. We know from Athens, the days of the great philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, and the Montesquieu and the rest of them. Now, there was the urgency. I mean, if we're to achieve freedom, right? Yeah, if we're to have, advanced societies, there was urgency to move from the days of monarchy, absolutism, autocracy, that were marked by tyranny and the rest of them. So democracy was an invention, and there was no democracy effectively without, popular representation. Okay, and popular representation needed a system that will articulate the various interests and competitions, all right, into a structured political process that will allow for periodic elections. And that was the necessity of political parties. Now, political parties now is one party most times that wins the election, right? okay, because that is the whole idea. And but then the issue, we're running out of time.
Yeah,
all right, fine.
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. All right,
yeah.
fine. So, okay, let me leave that part. Now, in terms of the solution, one, we need a political movement first before political party now as it stands. For that to happen, we need to further this nation. You know, if you look at politics today, it is so much about bitter rivalry, quest for power, and then not just to win, but to consolidate, right? So that is not going to sustain, it's not sustainable, okay? And then that is also not destroying the abilities of the other parties to be able to stand in opposition. So we have to have a place where political movement must be activated, right? So that in a constitutional way, we should be able to begin to come together, right? To say, look, before we talk about political parties, before we talk about good governance, let us first define what do we want, who are we as a nation, right? Now, what philosophy, what vision, what purpose, what mission are we going to derive? And then now, more importantly, begin to evolve citizens. We need to begin to develop our citizens. The citizens have been so, traumatized, so undermined that even the capacity, for independent thoughts and ability to respond to the challenges is becoming more difficult for them.
All right, time not our friend when you're having lots of fun. I want to say a big thank you to the CEO of a Leadership Commission and Academy, and the person of Benjamin Alika, for joining us in the live studios and helping us look at issues making the rounds. Hopefully we'll continue this as a series. Next edition, whenever you see him, you're sure we're going to continue from where we've just stopped today, as we seek for solutions to make Nigeria a better country and get greater and better leaders for our dear country, Nigeria. My name is Anthony Momodu, saying thank you for joining me on today's edition of the program, The Desk. Is The Desk on Global Television.
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are definitely because
that this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's The Desk on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on The Desk. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on The Desk.